Hello. Hello. Okay, so let's start with the new topic, the psychosocial aspects of dentistry. The purpose of adding this topic, although dentistry is a specialized field, dentistry patients would be dealt by a dentist, but in the routine outdoor patient OPD department, we have to attend a few patients, and most commonly with the pulpitis, with the jaw pain, etc. So, as all of you know that maybe some of you experience the toothache or the pain in your tooth, it is also very severe. So deal with these patients. To understand these patients, we have to know the we should have awareness regarding the various psychological as well as the social aspects of dentistry or those patients with the dental problems. So for that perspective, this topic has been added in your syllabus, and let's start with it. Now, before starting, let me clear one thing. Please divide the topics of all these E section with that heading of psychosocial aspects of various things into two things. One are the psychological aspects, and obviously other are the social aspects. But for the today, in order to divide this thing, we will divide the psychosocial aspects of dentistry into three aspects. One, those psychosocial aspects, those aspects that are linked, that are rooted in the developmental sequence. Other aspect are those things which is regarding the dentistry, which belongs to pure psychological, the fear, the emotions, etc. Those things that those factors that usually play in the background of your mind or at the unconscious level. And obviously the third thing is the social aspects or those things related to dentistry which belongs to the society or the culture. So for this topic, the psychosocial aspects of dentistry, we will broadly classify into the three things. One, those aspects that are linked with the developmental sequence. One are those aspects that are linked purely with the psychological sequence or the psychological significance, that is the unconscious of your mind and the back of your mind. And the third are those factors that are linked with the social aspects of the dentistry or those factors that are linked with the society. So let's begin with the developmental aspects of dentistry, or among the psychological, the developmental aspects. First of thing, dentistry obviously belongs to the oral cavity and all the structures related to it. So oral cavity has a very prominent and very important significance during our developmental milestones. Please remember the theory of the Freud, the oral stage, the anal stage. It's the oral stage from which we obtain our gratitude, from which we obtained our comfort, from which we obtained our trust on the external environment after coming to this world. So that importance of oral cavity buried deep in your mind, even after your adulthood, even after your adolescence. If someone at the oral stage has not got the enough player, has not got the enough attention, has not got the enough resources, then the rest of life there will be a compromise in the trust. Secondly, as the purpose of the oral stage or the oral cavity, according to the Freud's theory, is that we have to obtain the trust part of our personality. So oral cavity, if compromised, if the oral cavity become diseased, then according to that theory our trust will be undermined, or according to that theory our trust would be broken. So this is the importance of the oral cavity regarding the some developmental sequences. So why the trust would be broken even after in the adulthood? Because there is a defense mechanism known as a depression. Hopefully you guys aware at this stage about the repression. So it is basically the unconscious hiding of all of your feelings, unconscious hiding of all of your traumas, which your brain doesn't like to remember during the later developmental sequences. So because of this repression, they said that the oral cavity trust or the oral cavity significance buried in your mind, deep in your mind. So when your oral cavity become disease, then you are again feeling the same feelings aroused back of your mind that you are not aware of. That is the lack of trust, the lack of confidence, and the lack of the quality of life you will be compromised. Hopefully this part is clear. If this is not clear, as this is a little bit theory, so please text in the text box. So let's see what they have written in your book. Oral cavity is the most tender and most vulnerable part of body. This is written because of the developmental significance of oral cavity, that it provides us trust, it provides us the ability to trust in this physical world after coming to this world. Tongue is only fully developed organ at birth. Yes, obviously, by birth we just knew one thing, that uh, how to just express our anger, how to just express. We don't know how to eat. We don't know how to talk. So there is oral cavity or the tongue or the oral structures are the first organ in your body in which you interact with the external world first time. So during the dentist visit or when our oral cavity become disease, we place our oral cavity at the most vulnerable point again. It means that the significance of this sentence is that your oral cavity become disease. So again, you become insecure as because of the repression. Again, that those traumatic memories which once was there when you came into this world, they become again aroused. They become again come into the subconscious mind from the unconscious mind. So you will again feel that fear, you will again feel that danger, you will again feel that lack of trust in the physical world. Hopefully now it's clear. Now what are the causes of the anxiety during this dental treatment, or when we become when we develop some caries, when we develop some lesion in the oral cavity? First thing is that, which is the repetition of the previous slide, it's the recall from your unconscious mind, the feeling of helplessness, dependency, vulnerability, and unable to express ourselves that was once we have when we just born, right? So again, because of the disease of the oral cavity, we again place ourselves in the same vulnerable position, in the same compromising position. So in the same way, the defense mechanism of repression came into play, and all this dependency, all this helplessness, all this vulnerability, they came into being. They again reborn. Secondly, when our oral cavity is diseased, we are unable to communicate in the usual way. For example, you are developing a canker sore during the exam period of your prof, or during the test sessions. So what will happen? Your quality of life would be compromised. How? You are unable to eat properly. You are unable to chew properly. You are unable to even express yourself properly. Third thing, close proximity of dentists also perceived as threat. Obviously, all of us uh, admire, and all of us, there is a need that there should be a minimum physical distance between the humans. So when a dentist or a dental doctor or a dental physician is a stranger, so lying in the dental chair with such a close interaction with the dentist, so it also put fear in ourselves, in our conscious minds, that we have no idea what's going on. We have no idea that how he will treat us. We have no idea that how much pain we have to bear while pulling out the tooth, etc. So this close proximity, the setting of the dentist, this also generates some anxiety. Mixing of the negative associations of doctor and other authority figure with the dentist, and obviously if the dental doctor or the dentist is not a good physician or not a good surgeon, then the phenomena of the negative counter transference we will experience as a patient, we will experience. So these are the main causes of the dental anxiety. Embarrassing thoughts, bad memories. Bad memories means the memories of your childhood. Embarrassing thought regarding your smile, embarrassing thought regarding your dirty tooth, embarrassing thoughts regarding your quality of life, that is I said earlier, the canker sore, etc. And obviously the pain itself generates anxiety. It's not the pain of your just the toothache, pain of any kind. And thirdly, and obviously, because of all these three factors, we are not enjoying the loss of control that once we have on our body. Imagine a situation. Imagine the situation of a patient at the mid of the night. He developed a toothache, the severe toothache. He visits an emergency, and now few moments back, few hours back, he can eat, he can sleep calmly, he can sleep with the peaceful mind. Now just after an hour when he developed the toothache, he cannot enjoy the sleep, he cannot enjoy the food, he cannot talk properly, etc. So all these factors lead to the dental anxiety. And always remember, literature suggests that these dental patients, they have the severe anxiety, they have the severe depression regarding the dental treatments, because dentistry is something which is directly related with the quality of life. So it is among those diseases, it is among those professions which put the patients as well as the dentist at the great anxious feeling, at the great anxiety feelings. Now let's come to the point, what is the dental phobia? Now, because of this dental anxiety, because of these developmental sequences, because of this nature of this dental diseases, there is a lot of chance that the patient will develop the dental phobia. And frankly speaking, a lot of patients doesn't visit their dentist. A lot of people doesn't want to expose themselves towards a dentist because of this phobia. Now, let's see from where this phobia emerges and from where this phobia comes. First thing is that the again the fear of the disease itself, the severity of the disease itself, and thirdly the because of the some previous experience, as dental treatments are mostly not free of pain. There is obviously there if during treatment there is no pain, then post operatively there is a pain, because dentistry is all about the surgery. And after surgery, patients are obviously experiencing some pain for the few days. Like you have, if anyone of you ever experienced a root canal, or anyone of you ever experienced a tooth extraction, then you have the idea that right after the tooth extraction there might be a little bit swelling, there might be a little bit pain, and same is the situation with the root canals, with the scalings and all these procedures. So because of that previous thing, there is a lot of chances that the patient will develop the phobia. So it's a survey that the 5 to 8% Americans, they avoid the dentist because of this dental phobia, because of this fear. So what are the outcomes of dental phobia? Why it's important for us? First thing is that, let's start with the top of the loop, that focus on the word, the dental fear. This is the fear which originates in the development. This is the fear which originates with the previous experience. This is the fear which originates after listening to my neighbor, after listening to my friend who just visits a dentist, etc. So because of this fear, there would be a delayed visiting. And let's say I have to fill, there is a need to fill my tooth, I develop the caries. So if we delay the treatment, then their caries will progress into the pulpitis, or the swelling, or the pulp necrosis, or the tooth necrosis. Then this delayed visiting ultimately will lead into the symptom driven treatment, that I need a tooth extraction, but I have so much fear of the dental treatments. What I will do, that I will just took the pain medications, I will do the NSAIDs, I will took the antibiotics myself, especially in the country like the Pakistan. So this symptom driven treatment ultimately enhances our fear patterns, and this will ultimately enhances our delayed visiting. The problem going on, one tooth extraction, second tooth extraction, then third tooth extraction. And you have seen the patients that those who develop the phobia, ultimately they have no tooth in their mouth, or the very limited number of tooth, and this severely compromise quality of life. So why this dental phobia is so alarming, so important? Because it ultimately delayed the treatment, it ultimately enhances the fear, because of the positive feedback, because of the reinforcement that we got in the back of your mind, that okay fine, I have took the antibiotic for the 3 days, I have taken the painkillers in the sufficient quantity, and now there is no need to visit a dentist, because the symptoms subsides, and those symptoms will appear after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks. So this loop keeps on going. Now, what are the signs of this dental phobia? The trouble sleeping before the dental exam, the feeling of nervousness, that obviously escalates in the waiting room of dental office, that crying or feeling physically ill at the very thought of visiting the dentist, and the intense uneasiness, and obviously the sudden feeling that your breathing has been stopped, you're not breathing properly. As for the dental phobia is concerned, as any phobia is concerned, we have knew that there is an unconscious desire when we have the phobia of anything, like we have the phobia of the height, that there is an unconscious desire that we should not expose to that particular stimulus in the environment, right? And obviously because of the phobia, we have the choking feeling, we have the feeling of the palpitations, we have the feeling of the fear. So if you have the exam phobia, obviously you cannot sleep before night. So apply all those phobia symptoms, apply all those phobia features towards this dental phobia. If a person have a dental phobia, then obviously he would have a trouble in the sleeping the night. Obviously he would keep on thinking about the dental treatment, that what will they will do, how it will going on, what will happen after the treatment, how much swelling I will develop, etc. and etc. And obviously during the visit he will feel the palpitations. Obviously during the visit he will feel the choking feeling. Obviously during the visit he will be extremely nervous, etc. Now, so what are the signs and symptoms in the physiological signs symptoms? These are related to all those symptoms which are the typical characteristics of a typical phobia. Then among the children, what they will do, obviously they will cry, they will push the instruments away, they will refuse, they will be uncooperative. And among the adults, they may become verbally abusive, they may be constantly delaying their treatment appointments, and they may be finding the secondary reasons of delaying the treatment. For example, an adult who is visiting, always visiting a dentist, let's say in future a patient comes to you with this complaint that Dr. Sabai, if when I visit a dentist, dentists are very dentist people are very, he will always complain to you that they are not competent enough. I have no idea that what disease I acquired, what disease I developed in my oral cavity, that even the no dentist is willing to, no dentist becoming successful in treating my disease. Now what they are doing, they are doing the projection defense mechanism. And why they are doing? Because they have the unconscious desire to delay that particular treatment, right? They will complain a lot about the sterilization things, they will complain a lot about they will delay the appointments, and so on. And what are the cognitive aspects of dental phobia and anxiety? Obviously negative thoughts, dread, apprehension, there are the negative emotions. So these are the typical signs and symptoms of phobia. Now what are the causes of this dental phobia? Obviously the chief cause is the fear of pain. Then is the fear of the needles, fear of the armamentarium, fear of the instruments. And then obviously when we hear the word the numbness, or I have to extract your tooth under the general anesthesia, or I have to extract your tooth even under the local anesthesia, then obviously the fear, the word anesthesia obviously puts something in our mind. If it's a local anesthesia, obviously I am aware, I can see that the dentist have some plier in his or her hand and going to pull my tooth. So how it will go? Then obviously the feeling of helplessness and the loss of control because of that oral diseases, because of the treatment nature. As if anyone among you have visited a dental clinic, then obviously all the treatments are going on in a dental chair, in the close proximity of the dentist, where you can't do anything. You are at the risk, you are at the stake of dentist. Why it's the dentistry is different from the general surgery? How the surgery is different? Because in this surgery most of the procedures are doing while we are conscious, we are not unconscious, right? Whereas in the general surgery theater, procedures are mostly done under the general anesthesia, or at least the spinal anesthesia, or at least we are unable to see the procedure. Whereas Let's say, just imagine a patient who just lying, who listens a lot of negative things about the dentistry, that it's very painful when they will pluck out your tooth, then you will remember this thing, you will remember this thing. And now that particular patient lying in the dental chair, and he's seeing a lot of hundreds and thousands of instruments, there are a lot of gadgets around him, and he's feeling like, oh, I can't do anything. So ultimately the fear will arouse, ultimately the phobia will arouse. Then obviously the embarrassment regarding the smile, regarding the chewing, etc. And obviously the loss of the personal space, which I discussed previously. Now, what we can do, how we can reduce this phobia? By obviously developing the rapport with the patient, which we have learned in the section A, which we have talked a lot about in the section B even. So after developing this rapport thing, knowing how to ask the patient what he or she is thinking, by making him comfortable, by developing a two-way communication, what are the demands, what are the expectations of the patient, and obviously the relaxed and the well organized environment. What we mean by the well organized environment and by the relaxed environment should not be should not pose any sort of threat towards the patient. For example, if on the dental chair there are a lot of gadgets, there are a lot of instruments, there are a lot of scary instruments, then the phobia would be a natural thing. So if dentists should reduce the number of instruments, and dentists should hide the maximum instruments. For example, putting the instruments behind the patient head so he cannot see the all the armamentarium, he cannot see the all the things which is going on. And obviously if the doctor should be expert means that what he is claiming, he should be able to do it. For example, he is claiming that this tooth extraction is the painless procedure, and while doing the tooth extraction, there is only screams around the whole dental unit and around the whole dental department. What do you think, that patient whose tooth is being plucking on, will he visit the dentist again? Don't, never. Okay. So the dentist should be expert in his or her field. Okay, so what are the features of this expert dentist? These are all those features which are the features of a good physician or the good surgeon or the good doctor. He should have a good communication abilities. He should adapt his communication according to the level of the patient, which we have studied in detail in the section B, in the section A. That first you must get the data regarding the patient, then you have to adapt yourself, then you have to adapt all the scientific words according to that patient demands and according to the patient level of thinking, level of knowledge, etc. Then he should be highly competent in his respective field. Obviously this will oblige the pillar of beneficence, this will oblige the pillar of the non-maleficence, which are the basic requirements of being a doctor. Then the expert dentist should try its maximum to make the every visit pain free, right? Then he should genuinely cares about the patient, that he should not care about now the procedure is over, now I am not concerned with the patient. No, no, that should not be the attitude. You have learned enormously regarding this feature what the genuine care means, that is the care of the patient in the professional boundary. Then the dentist should have the ability to nurture a patient through the past trauma. Let's say if a dentist should know a little bit, should have a knowledge regarding the psychosocial assessment. If the patient claims that I visited the dentist 15 years ago and this happens and this happens, and since that day I didn't visit the dentist again. So the dentist or the doctor who is working with the patient right now, he should have the ability to do a little bit psychosocial assessment to assess the patient, that what are the sensitive areas or what are the sensitive demands of that particular patient. Next, besides obviously all these points which are written in the previous slides, this came during the training of the dentist. If the dentist is trained in a behavioral aspect in a holistic way, then obviously he will stuck to all those points. Or if a doctor is trained in a holistic way, in a holistic manner, then or she will stuck to all those points, the communication effectively, that the importance of the rapport building, the importance of the psychosocial assessments, how to overcome the psychosocial threats, etc. But besides that, there are obviously certain psychological techniques which we imply for reducing the phobia. So what are those techniques? There are three. One are the distraction, one are the hypnotherapy, and the third thing is the psychological support and the counseling. Let's come to the distraction techniques. Okay, okay. Distraction basically have just the one purpose. Uh, uh, Hopefully, at this point, you are aware regarding the classical conditioning, regarding the learning principles. So, in the classical conditioning, if you unconsciously attached a soothing stimulus at the peak of phobia, then in the next, it is possible. Okay, good. Then in the next, it is possible that the phobia would be reduced. Let me repeat it. What is the purpose of these distraction techniques? When the patient reaches at the height of phobia, when the patient develops the severe phobic feeling, then attach a soothing stimulus, attach a relaxing stimulus with that at that particular moment. Now, at that moment, what the patient experienced, despite of phobia, he is experiencing a soothing feeling. So, what will happen that in the future, after 2 or 3 or 4 times this pairing, what will happen that the patient will have less intensity of phobia or the phobic attack. How they are doing in the dentistry, this distraction technique, that meanwhile during the dental treatment, some dentists, they are doing they are playing the music in the west, and in the Pakistan even, some dentists are even they start reciting the Quran and these things. They have the attached LCD display on their dental units, and on that they start playing the something. So the patient's attention span, so the patient's focus, they will become, patient will become distract from the dental treatment towards that LCD. Or for example, you have the pediatric patient, child with the caries, or the child that requires the caries, as they are more prone towards the phobia, towards developing the all these things. So what they will do, that that dentist can play the cartoons, or the dentist can play a movie on that particular screen. So during the treatment, patient have the no idea that what's going on, right? Second thing is that the hypnotherapy, the hypnosis, it is nothing, it is also a sort of distraction, but at your unconscious level, that you are indulging your patient in a secondary environment, in a secondary stimulus, which have the greater intensity than the current environmental stimulus. So what will happen, that the patient will become numb in his or her cognition. Patient will immediately shift his or her focus from the current environment toward that unconscious technique, this hypnotherapy focus. How they are doing? Uh, it always starts with the communication, right? That is, during the communication, you first explore the fears of your client, you first explore the fears of your the motivations of your client, then that motivation you're then indulging him in a communication, meanwhile you're doing the treatment. So what you are doing, you're not letting the patient to become indulge in the thinking of that particular dental treatment. As you know that you have read in the section C, that our brain can focus one thing at one time, right? In the memory, you have learned that we only put those memories in our mind which we put focus on it, right? So what they are doing in the hypnotherapy session, that they are unconsciously shifting our focus from the conscious towards the unconscious, that we unconsciously indulge in another world, right? For you guys, I guess this hypnotherapy explanation is enough. If anyone is interested, what is this, how they are doing it, it's all available on the internet. You can ask even in last at the end of this lecture. Then the third thing is the psychological support and the counseling. Let's see this technique in the detail, as we have already studied this counseling skill in your section, previous sections A and B. So let's see how you will do the counseling of dental patient. Let's say in future, you you may encounter a dental patient with the severe phobia. Okay, for all counseling sessions, there are two basic assumptions. Patient is willing, first thing, and the second thing is that what is the roadblock which is causing this problem. You have to highlight that roadblock, then you have to highlight all the pros and cons, then you have to highlight, and then the patient will tell you what are the alternate two or three methods that he can deal with this roadblock. Then you mutually decide that which method is good, then you're going with it, right? Remember the counseling thing. So let's see. Aim of the counseling is to discuss the anxieties in the way that can help to overcome them. uh, yes, systemic desensitization is one thing, but regarding the systemic desensitization, the problem is that the patient should lie, and patient should you can do it. But this will come under the distraction techniques, not under the hypnotherapy. The difference between these two is that during those distraction techniques, which can include systemic desensitization, you're doing while the patient is conscious, while the patient is thinking in the conscious, it connected with the environment. But the aim of the hypnotherapy is that you're shifting the focus from the conscious towards the unconscious mind or the subconscious of the mind, right? This is the main difference. Yes, you can do it. Okay. Counseling involves exploring the origin of a fear, look at the thinking patterns, look at the roadblock which is stuck in the mind, that it where from where this phobia thing arouses, from where this anxiety, this panic starts. Either it's a childhood memory, either it is a memory related to the dental treatment that he pursued a treatment 15 years back which was very painful, or either it's a personality of the dentist, that is the dentist is very unprofessional. Either the dentist or the dental doctor who is treating that particular patient, he is overly bossy, which remembers the feeling of all this contour transferring, etc., all these things. So first we have to explore the origin. Once we explore the origin of the fear, when we explore the origin of the phobia, then obviously it's very easy to treat that particular patient. Same principle applies to all counseling sessions of all kinds. So whenever you are doing a counseling of the patient, it's a sort, you should start like you are doing a psychosocial assessment thing. You are starting with the current thing, the job, let's say the student, then the studies, then the current, the family life, etc. Then they were stepping backward towards the childhood, towards the etc. social history, etc. Then they were highlighting them all the fears, all the negative things, all the positive things regarding the current situation, regarding the current roadblock. Then in the second step, what we are doing, you are assuming a roadblock that according to my perception, according to the history which I just took, might be these are the problems. Then you are addressing those problems. And then obviously you taught your patients the various relaxation techniques, the various PMR techniques which you have studied in the section C, the systemic desensitization, etc., right, as we have discussed it earlier. So just quickly go through it. uh, what's the difference between this and that hypnotherapy? This thing usually plays while the patient is at the conscious level. Mind level is the conscious. The patient is connected with the environment, he can feel the environment, he's not numb. Always remember, while doing the PMR, while doing the this systemic desensitization, while listening to the music, obviously he is aware of his environment. But like these are the few examples of this distraction techniques. The here there's a child, then there is some VR display and etc. And in the second picture, the dentist is holding this cup in the this child's hand. You can play with it, so that this can temporarily distract this patient. Now, what is this hypnotherapy thing? Let's discuss a little bit detail. It obviously an alter of mind from the conscious towards the subconscious thing. And once you are in the, we all become hypnotized at some point of our life. Let me tell you how. There's a thing known as a trance, as you can see on the screen. Trance thing is that when you're indulged so much deeply doing while doing an activity that you have no idea regarding the hunger, regarding the time spending, regarding what's going on around you. So this phase is known as the trance. What's a trance phase? That a person temporarily shifts his focus from the conscious mind towards the subconscious mind. That when you are doing something very interesting, right? So in the same way, while doing the hypnotherapy for the clinical sessions, we are doing the same thing. That by indulging the patient in the various sort of activities, in the various sort of communication, we are shifting the focus from the conscious mind toward the subconscious mind, so that those things that are happening around him is not aware of it. Okay, hypnotherapy is obviously not for everyone. It's like a counseling is not for everyone. Similarly, hypnotherapy is not for everyone. It's only for those people who are willing to do it. For example, just focus on this circles. After a few minutes, you will be unaware of your the surrounding, right? If the focus is right. The most important thing in the hypnotherapy sessions is the focus. Now these are the summary that how we can reduce this dental anxiety and this dental phobia thing. So quickly have a view on it. First thing is that obviously the most important thing is the communication, the rapport building, right? Then slowly goes towards the treatment. If obviously there is a patient with a lot of fear, as you can obviously knew that fear is an emotion which is not necessarily, it's not necessary that the patient with the phobia or the patient with the fear, he or she will show it every time. It's not possible, right? So if you directly put the instrument in the patient's mouth, if the dentist will put directly the instruments in the patient's mouth, then that fear would shine again. So dentists should go slow, should start the treatment with the communication, then jumps toward the procedures. Then ask your patients. Dentist should tell the patient that during the treatment, if anything is disturbing comes up, or if anything is going bad, then he or she should use the signs like lift your right arm if you feel the so much pain, lift your left arm if you feel the so much fear, etc. Then obviously these music and the deep breaths, these are the parts of the distraction techniques. And sedation, although is not recommended, especially for this dental phobia thing, no doubt. While sedating a patient, dentist can perform the procedure very easily. It's very convenient for the dentist, no doubt in it. But what's the problem with this sedation? That person will be positively reinforced that in the next future, if he or she develops a disease, if he or she develops a problem regarding the dental thing, then he will demand that same sedation procedure, which is not possible every time. So this is the problem with this sedation thing. But obviously it is ultimate choice when all these things become fail. Now, so far what we have discussed, so far we have discussed the childhood aspects regarding the psychosocial aspects of dentistry. We have discussed the psychological perspectives regarding the dentistry. And now, as I told you guys earlier, that there is a third perspective regarding the dentistry, which is the social perspective. As teeth are very important in the society, as oral cavity is very important, as we communicate via this oral cavity, we chew via this oral cavity, and there are lot of myths regarding the dentistry in the society, because it is such a field which people doesn't think that it is a special, it is a separate speciality. So let's see what are these social things. So among the social perspective, the first thing which comes is obviously the dental appearance. Everyone is concerned unconsciously with the smile, with the tooth appearance, with the tooth alignment, etc. Obviously patients are more conscious regarding their aesthetics, regarding the healthy smile, regarding the attractive smile. And research shows that patients with the malocclusion, they have a negative self-image, they have a less self-esteem. Reason being is that, as first thing is that the importance of this smile and importance of this healthy oral cavity relates to that development sequence. And secondly, obviously oral cavity is such a prominent thing in your whole face. The smile or the tooth appearance is the most prominent thing while talking, while chewing. So the negative comments regarding your smile, the negative comments regarding your occlusion, negative comments regarding your this appearance, so it will demoralize your self image. Okay, and God forbid if someone have the this craniofacial malformations, for example, the cleft lip or the cleft palate. Obviously, it's it's very prominent thing. Obviously, it's something which cannot be, you cannot hide it. So what will happen that that particular person with this sort of malformations, he or she will develop the negative self image. So these malformations should be treated as soon as possible. And obviously, second reason is that because second reason behind this dental appearance, why it's so important for the humankind, is that all of us have a need to belong towards some group. If you guys remember the Erickson's theory, if you guys remember this Freud theory, and with the faulty with the unnatural oral cavity, with the unnatural tooth appearance, with the unnatural facial appearance, there are obviously less chances that we should, that the people will accept us. Okay, so that need of our acceptance then will be unsatisfied, would that need would be there for the whole life. Okay, now see, uh, the another aspect of the this oral cavity and the dentistry, the anxiety disorders, they sometimes shows. Okay, let me first sum up the previous thing, otherwise there would be a milkshake of this knowledge. First are those aspects that are related to the childhood experience, or that are related to the childhood developmental sequences, as we studied in the previous slides. Then we studied those things which are related with the psychological things, the phobias and the anxieties. The main difference between a dental phobia and a dental anxiety or the fear is that the anxiety will not hinder the treatment purpose, whereas the phobia will hinder the treatment of the patient. The patient will not visit the dentist. Then we explored the various causes of the dental phobia, that is the previous experience, the childhood experience, the personality of the dentist, etc., etc., etc. Then we discussed the various ways that how we can treat that phobia, that by bringing the distraction, hypnotherapy, counseling, what would be the objective of the counseling, how you will do it, etc. Then we just discussed another aspect, the social aspect of the dentistry, that is the appearance. Why appearance is so important? Because it helps in building a positive self-image. It helps in building in satisfying the need to recognize us, to belong us towards some group in the society. If we have the faulty malocclusion, if you have the faulty occlusion or malocclusion or the black tooth or the cracked tooth, or someone, God forbid, with the craniofacial deformities, then there is a difficulty that the people will accept him or her. So this will put the negative image. So if you see in the future any patient with such a low self-esteem, and during the psychosocial assessment he pops up that it's my dental tooth, it's my it's my dental appearance, it's my oral cavity, because of this thing I always feel negative, I always feel sabotaged, I always feel rejected, then you should urge that he or she should start the treatment as soon as possible, and particularly for the malformation, for example the cleft tooth and the cleft palate. Now jumps to the towards a different subtopic of the today's topic, that the oral cavity will reveal the certain diseases regarding the physical health of a person. Among them, among the psychological diseases, there are certain disorders that have the oral manifestations. Now got the point? What is the purpose of this upcoming slides? That now we are relating the physical health, the psychological health in the oral health, or in the oral cavity, that how the psychological symptoms, how the certain physical symptoms can display in the oral cavity, how a dentist can help to forward a patient with certain physical disorders. So These canker sores or the ulcers, this dry mouth thing, this lichen planus is it's an autoimmune disease. What will happen in it? That uh, the the joints between the connective tissue and the epithelium, they become disrupted because of the antibody attack. So the patient will present with the sloughs oral mucosa with the white patches on the oral mucosa, etc. The burning mouth syndrome, this happens particularly in the post-menopausal women's, and it patient will present that with the dry mouth, with the excessive spices and all these things, and the TMJ disorder or the TMJ pain, which maybe some of you also experience during the prof time, that there is a clicking, there is a pain in front of the ears. Uh, so these are the manifestations of the various anxiety disorder. Anxiety disorders can lead to all these things. Okay. Phobias, panic attacks, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic disorder, they all have the oral implication. They all will present in somehow with these manifestations, that a patient will pop up with the chronic oral ulcers or the canker sores. Canker sore doesn't have an pinpoint etiology. The dental literature suggests that there are more than 20 causes of these canker sores, but they are always exaggerated with the anxiety or with the stress period. Similarly, this burning mouth syndrome and the TMJ disorder, they are very, very closely related with these anxiety and the panic attacks. Okay, as the time is short, so I'm just jumping. And now, for us, regarding the behavioral sciences perspective, the important thing regarding this oral cavity and the psychological symptom or the anxiety symptoms is the illness behavior. Because of this, all these oral manifestations of the anxiety, patients usually want to relax. Patient usually goes on the illness behavior or the hopefully there is no need to tell you guys at this moment what is the illness behavior, how you will separate it from the sick role, and it's all these things as you have studied in the section D, right? So illness behavior or the sick role is very closely related with all these facial pains, with all these TMJ pains. Patient will always make an excuse from the responsibilities. Patient will always make an excuse from the daily routine because of this pain, dental pain. Okay, so how we can do this stress reduction techniques to reduce this oral anxiety or the anxiety related to the. Now, please don't confuse with this with the previous slide of the psychological techniques. We have said that oral treatment or the dental treatment is among the most anxious treatments, right? We explored the reasons, we explored the features, and etc. In the previous slides, we have studied the psychological ways to tackle with this stress, to tackle with this phobia. Now, those ways are especially for the dentist people. What you can do for the patient, you can teach him, you can guide him while doing the counseling session, thus various the stress reduction techniques. What is the purpose of this stress reduction techniques? To condition the muscle relaxation response, as it is also comes under the heading of the distraction techniques. At the pinpoint, at the peak of the phobia, you will attach a secondary stimulus with the primary stimulus. So what will happen, that secondary stimulus will unconsciously pair with the primary phobic stimulus, and the patient will ultimately become relaxed. Okay, what are the indications while deploying these techniques? That are symptoms that are primarily related to the anxiety, symptoms that are secondary aggravated by the anxiety, bruxism or clenching activity, and the muscle pain like the TMJ pain, like the unexplained oral cavity pain, like the unexplained toothache, like the unexplained twitching of the TMJ joint, etc. How you will do it? There are two ways: Jacobson and the biofeedback. Jacobson is something which you have studied in the PMR, the Progressive Muscle Relaxation Practical. Hopefully, that practical you remembered it. That we are doing one by one. We start with the longer muscle, then we go with the shorter muscle, and we start from the arms, then we go towards the feet. And then there's the second technique known as the biofeedback. There's nothing different between these two. The major difference is that in the biofeedback there is an instrument attached with the various muscle groups. So when the patient tenses it, then a beep comes, and when patient relaxes it, then another beep comes. So in this way, patient tunes toward the PMR technique, like this. This is the Jacobson, and this is the this biofeedback. Okay. So any questions so far? It's just a relaxation of the previous whole slides. It's just a repetition of the whole slides. So have a look at it, and if you can't understand, then please ask. As we have just last 5 minutes. So any other question regarding this topic? There are few words that are new to you guys. Just see in the left box. Meanwhile, you can type the message. I will answer it. This guided imagery and the cognitive restructuring. This comes under the heading of the CBT, or the cognitive behavior therapy. As we have seen that all our emotions, these are the product of our cognition. All our emotions are the product of our thinking. So, uh, how interesting it would be if we change that cognitive process of a patient with the who is involved overly with the phobias, who shows the excessive sign of anxiety. So by modifying his cognition, by modifying his way of thinking, you can reduce the ultimately the stress level, you can reduce the anxiety level, etc. So this guided imagery and this cognitive restructuring, this comes under the heading of the cognitive behavior therapy. If anyone is interesting, then you can search the internet or you can ask us. Similarly, hypnosis is again the thing which we have read previously, the hypnotherapy that temporarily transiently switching the patient from the conscious level towards the subconscious level. And all these antidepressant drugs or all these hypnotics, they are usually administered a night before the dental exam. So no question. Amazing. So how was the test yesterday or 2 days back? Good. Good. Okay. Good. If confusing, why confusing? Okay, at the last, I will just give you one tip regarding all these psychosocial aspects. When you will when you in future when you will study from your book, then the students usually complain one thing, that all these psychosocial things are alike. What you have to do, you have to make your own notes, divide these things into two aspects, psychological and the social. Okay, now psychological, then make the subheadings: emotions, memory, learning, cognition. For example, this dentistry topic, just divide it into the two parts: psychological, social. Social, okay, one is the appearance, one is the societal views, and one are the as accept society acceptance, right? Under the psychological aspects, divide into the two parts: one are the developmental, those related to the developmental thing, and other one those related to the psychological things. Among the psychological things, then further divide into two: phobias as well as the anxiety thing. That's it, this is the whole topic. Otherwise, when you will study these psychological things from the section E, then the student mostly perceive it that everything is written again and again and again and again. So you have to split it right now during the study, during right now. Otherwise, when you will study for the exam, for the test, all these things will mingle up, right? So all the best. It's 12 o'clock. Take care.